Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 5, Episodes 8 and 9, The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. Okay, before we get started, I have to admit I was a little reluctant to actually watch this one, because previously I haven't been a big fan of, well, Cold Blood. I really liked The Hungry Earth, but Cold Blood I wasn't really that big of a fan of, although at one point I think it was either earlier this year or last year, I did see part of a repeat of that episode, and I also saw a repeat of Vincent and the Doctor on W, and I enjoyed Cold Blood a lot more on that rewatch than I've previously done. And the same can be said for this one, except this time for the whole episode. Actually, no, it was the whole episode of that one. I just missed the Hungry Earth. But yeah, I really enjoyed Cold Blood on this rewatch and the rewatch before. And as for the Hungry Earth, well, I've enjoyed that even more as well than I had before, and I was happy with that one. So, but despite that, I was still a little bit reluctant until I did rewatch the episodes, and well, yeah, these are very good episodes. So to start with, the plot sees this man called Mo, who's living in the nearby village, being sucked under the earth by foes who we have, well, not necessarily foes, um, but we'll find out later on who it is. But Mo gets sucked under the ground whilst on night duty at a drill, looking for minerals that are supposedly under the earth in the area. His father-in-law, Tony Mack, and his work partner, Chandri, Nursery Chandri, who they have a little bit of a thing going on between them as well, by the way, are in charge of this of the dig where they drill under the earth to um, get the find these minerals that they have discovered, and yeah, that's what they're up to. But unfortunately, they're digging in a spot where they're not supposed to be digging. They thought they'd find minerals, but because of blue grass in the area, but the blue grass was a warning: don't dig here. Um, but as usual, humans don't listen to that, and they dig there, which leads to the ground stuff, something underneath the ground coming and taking bodies from graves at first. For that's actually never explained. The graves eat people. That's actually not the people do that. I'll get on to them in a bit. I won't reveal who they are just yet, even though I already did at the end of the last review. But the people who have, they don't actually ever say why they've stolen bodies from the graves. I don't know exactly why they do. Why? That's never actually explained. It's just a mystery for Rory to investigate in this episode, and to talk to Mo's wife, Anne-Rose, and his son, Elliot, who is dyslexic and cannot actually read, but he can listen to audiobooks, which is important in the first episode, but not so much in the second episode. But it is interesting we get a dyslexic character into the episode. Anyway, so Rory is investigating the grave when Dr. Amy and Rory arrive in this village, in this Welsh village, in the year 2020, which is this year at time of recording, funnily enough. So the Doctor and Amy go off and investigate the dig, whilst Rory stays behind to put Amy's engagement ring away because he's worried she'd lose it. And then he gets caught up in this mystery about the graves, which, yeah, I think that's only just there for Rory to, so he can be separated from Amy and the Doctor, as well as also advance another mystery onto the episode about why people being taken from the graves, although that's probably the only one that's never actually answered. Probably. Also, funny enough, Amy and Rory in their future come down and wave at them to witness a past adventure, so to speak, from a long distance. Now, due to dinosaurs on a spaceship having Rory say that he is 31, then this is theoretically possible that Amy and Rory are, around the events of Series 7, Part 1, are able to come down to a past adventure and witness them do a couple of stuff on the ground from a distance. Also, earlier this year, someone made a joke about why Amy and Rory were so far away from their past counterparts. Not just because of all of the whole time and space thing, that they can only go from a distance. They can't actually meet up with their past selves. Otherwise, colossal universal bending thing, wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff, etc. Not just that, but also because of social distancing. I don't know why I'm swearing. I just found that a very funny joke. Because someone is saying, "Oh, Amy and Rory. The reason Amy and Rory are so far away is because of the social distancing measures." Well, I suppose we need a little bit of a joke in these current situations. But yeah, but then again, this story was probably written in 2009. It was filmed in 2009 and it came out in 2010. Nobody knew the coronavirus was coming until late 2019 at earliest. So, yeah, this episode is 10 years away. 10 years before, it had no idea of what was coming up in real life, but at least some people could make a joke about it. Well, we need to keep our spirits up after all. It wasn't a mean joke, so yeah, let's keep our spirits up. Anyway, so the Doctor and Amy investigate the drill, but Amy gets taken by the ground because the drill has um, started up again. So the attackers take her. With them actually taking people, they must be really strong to pull first Mo and then Amy down into the holes. They must be very strong people. I'll tell you who they are later. So the Doctor, Nurserine, and Tony have to make their way to the church to set up the equipment there, along with Ambrose and Elliot and Rory joining them. However, their attackers are not attackers. The people from coming under the earth are on their way up. Well, some more of them, I should say. Some of them are already there. Some more of them are on their way up, and they're coming to attack for some reason. I mean, the drill stopped, and the ground was fighting when the drill was operating. Although, mind you, in the pre-title scene, the cold open, the first holes came out when the drill was stopped opening, and it dragged Mo down. So, it's a bit inconsistent. They take Mo firstly, for some reason, when the drill stopped, and then they take Amy when it is off working, and when it stops, there's another couple on their way up for some reason, and the whole plan is to take hostages. But more on the plan later. But the whole episode is building up this tension and fear, and who are these people? What are they doing? Why are they coming up? Etc. This is great setup. The Hungry Earth is great setup, and it actually kind of is a bit more of a horror. I mean, it's not going to be a horror story, but it's building up that tension and that fear that Time of Angels had as well, except on a more of a faster paced scale, because the threat is on its way. What instead of all around them, but they don't notice until almost the last minute. And I think this proves to be a pretty tenseful episode, where it's building up the tension really well with the small group of characters who are trapped before everything kind of goes downhill for all of them once the attackers do get there. Unfortunately, the attackers are also ready to take out their communications. They've knocked out their communication system. They've put this invisible barrier up, and they've made during the time when they are attacking, they make it go nighttime to disguise everything, so that they can hide away when attacking. I guess it's not entirely made sense, but it works to an effective tension building. Anyway, these creatures manage to kidnap Elliot and take him hostage as well, and one of them also poisons Tony by giving him a venom lick of the tongue, a very long tongue. It's a venomous tongue. So the Doctor and Rory then devise a plan to capture one of these creatures and have them as a hostage to use as a bargaining chip, so to speak. So the Doctor and Rory capture one of these creatures. The Doctor has worked out who they are by now. He's realised by the hot and coldness of their blood, and it turns out that they are the Silurians, first appearing in Doctor Who and the Silurians from 1970, reappearing in Warriors of the Deep in 1984, season 7 and 21 to be for their stories. Also, the Sea Devils are distant cousins of them. They appeared in Warriors of the Deep and previously appeared in the Sea Devils in season 9, in 1972's The Sea Devils in season 9. No Sea Devils in this story, though, just the Silurians, or the Eocene, or Homo reptilia. So, the Doctor has one of these Silurians, known as Alea, probably the first female Silurian we've actually had. But I think most of the Silurians in this story are supposed to be female. Unsurprisingly, like her sister in the next episode, Alea just wants war between humans and Silurians because she wants to kill humans, I guess. The Silurians consider humans to be apes. Because of that's what they were back in the day, back in the Silurian times. However, things have changed a lot since then. But the Silurians don't seem to, well, some Silurians, I should say, don't seem to be past their prejudice, and this can be also seen in Doctor Who and the Silurians, and to an extent in Warriors of the Deep. But the Doctor hopes to bargain with Alea's tribe to try and see if that they can make an understanding between each other, return Alea in exchange for the 3 hostages down below, and hopefully negotiate a peace truce between the two races. However, when he and Nursery and Chandra get down there, they discover it's an entire civilization, not just an entire tribe of maybe a dozen Silurians, back in 1917, but an entire Silurian civilization underneath the Earth. And that ends The Hungry Earth, a really great tension building first part. That was a brilliant episode. That one is magnificent. That was amazing. Part 2, Cold Blood, is where I was a little more reluctant to get to, but after watching it, I think it's a good one. I think my main problem is that Reztek and many of the Silurians who follow her really are very single-minded. Alea as well. They are very single-minded. They just want war with the apes, and I just think, why don't you just stop and listen for a minute? And Reztek, I get it. You don't like apes, but you could at least understand things have changed. And when the Doctor proposes the exchange of Alea for the 3 hostages, she's like, "You dare you say you come in peace, yet you hold one of us hostage," forgetting that she has 3 of them hostage. 3 humans, 5 now. 5 hostages compared to 1. Excuse me, Reztek, but I think you're overreacting. I get it. Alea's your sister, and you're crossed she's their hostage. But to say that they are coming in peace, yet claim to have but they have a hostage, yet they the Silurians themselves now have 5. I think you're overdoing it, Reztek. And then she decides, "I'm going to execute you now." Fuck you. I think my main problems with this episode come from Reztek. If she was smarter, perhaps it would have worked. I don't know, but I just grit every time she says something stupid. And the whole thing of the execution, my God, Reztek, I get it. You're angry. You're scared. But just stop and think for a minute. Malakesh, he's being sensible. He's the one who's getting worried. He's the one who's not liking this situation. He's the one who thinks we should actually stop and listen. And, Malatek is a great character. He's really great. But Reztek, I hate Reztek. I get it. I understand where she's coming from. But she doesn't stop and think. Maybe her gaining her forces later in the episode, maybe that would work, or she's getting impatient. But come on, just stop and think for a minute. Thankfully, Amy and Mo escape, only to be recaptured. Great. Recaptured by Reztek's forces when they try to rescue the Doctor and Nazarene. Thankfully, Malakesh manages to get Eldred out of sleeping to come and help them. At the same time, Ambrose, after discovering what's happened to Tony, gets all scared of Alea and threatens to kill her. And does so with a taser gun, which somehow after 1 use is able to mortally wound Alea, and then after 2 uses wounds her even more, which causes her to then die a few moments later. well, to be honest, I don't actually know how that particular taser gun works, but I don't think a normal taser gun can kill you after 2 shots, even if it's a long dose. And even then, Ambrose, you let her taunt her. You let her get into your head. Didn't you hear at the end of the last episode? At the very least, don't take the weapon down. This is exactly what she wanted you to do. She wanted you to kill her so she'd be a martyr in the upcoming war. And once Reztek finds this out, well, what I said about her not stopping to think earlier, yeah, forget about that. She doesn't even stop and think. She won't even think now. She won't, never mind not stopping, she's not even thinking. She's just going ahead with it. She was going to do it anyway, but now there's no reasoning. So, great, the humans have lost their bargaining chip, and once the Siluri, the Reztek's forces, start taking over, they lose theirs. Not because of the hostages, but because things were going so well between Eldane and Amy and Nurserine, who were doing the whole peace thing, and Malekith was on their side, and he helped get Elliot out. I forgot his name for a moment. But you know, the good stuff in this story actually when they're actually doing the peaceful talk. But once when things start to fall apart on the human side, and when the Silurians actually attempt to take over by force, that's where it kind of goes down a bit downhill for me. I can see this story being an allegory for international relationships. This episode was written by Chris Chibnall, and it's definitely a very political story. A Chris Chibnall story that's political? Gee, we don't have any of those these days, do we? Whilst we're on that note, serious talk this time, but Doctor Who was never political before 2017, except it was. Those people who are saying that it wasn't, stop lying. No, seriously, stop. Stop, right now. No, really, right now. However, those of you who do know that Doctor Who was political before 2017, well done you. You know your stuff. Unlike the people who are saying it wasn't. Anyway, like I was saying, I think this story is a political allegory for international relationships, possibly using humans and the planet Earth's predecessors. But I don't know, I guess people are just taking a lot of stupid decisions in this story. The humans make one stupid decision that ruins everything for them, and the Silurians, well, the more resistance you are building up, the more likely there is no peace is going to happen, the more likely a war is coming. So that's why the Doctor and Eldane have to actually put the Silurians back into stasis, because there is no peaceful alliance with that is going to actually work. There is going to be no deal after the death of Leia and Reztek's revolution that is going to satisfy everybody. No one is. I mean, the deal as it was going to go through may have worked. Humans may have been persuaded on board, but with the death of Leia and the Reztek's revolution, that's it. There's no hope. So Eldane has to put them back into sleep, and they set the alarms for 1,000 years, so that the Silurians would awaken in 1,000 years. So by the time of the 31st century, there might be Silurians back on Earth. What is this? This colony. I'm not sure about any other tribes or colonies. But Tony needs to have his mutation, as that's what the venom's done to him. He's mutating into something. So Eldane's going to do a process onto him, and Nurserine stays behind. And then everybody runs off back to the TARDIS before the gas comes along. Reztek, of course, disobeys and attempts to kill the Doctor one last time. However, she shoots Rory, who pushes him out of the way. And that's one thing here. Along with Malekith, the two deaths by heat ray gun, Malekith and Rory, they just stand still so they can get shot. They don't try to move out of the way. They had time. Malekith had a second or two before Reztek shot him, and Rory had a moment before Reztek shot him. So yeah, they had a moment. It's not like a Dalek gun where they can run and then zap. That's it. The Daleks are good at zapping people on the run. The Silurians, they are depending on people to stand still to shoot them with their heat rays. So, yeah. there was the moment, and also around this point, the Crack in Time reappears for the first time, well, probably since Vampires of Venice, technically, but it's the first notable time since Flesh and Stone. I say Vampires of Venice because of the bit in the sky looked like a bit of a crack, and then the TARDIS keyhole did as well. But it's it's the first notable appearance since Flesh and Stone, and this time the Doctor takes something out. He thinks it's an explosion, so he takes some debris out from the cracks. Thankfully, he doesn't get erased from time when he does that. But then the light touches Rory, and he then gets erased from time, and the Doctor has to convince Amy to not forget him, which he does then do because the TARDIS has a bump when it lands. Eventually, the drilling is destroyed because Ambrose has made Tony set up a thing of a drill to destroy everything. It's drill to destroy. No, she set it to activate everything, and they had to put a energy pulse to destroy the drill before it hit the Silurians' oxygen pockets, which it was doing earlier. It was about to hit those. That's why they awoken and why they went into the attack mode, thinking it was an attack. Although, how would the humans know it was what was down there? Silurians, honestly, think. Oh wait, I forgot. Malachi and Eldane are the only two who think in this episode. The only two Silurians. So, anyway, in the end, the Doctor and Amy just go. Basically, they just go. Well, after the Doctor realizes his debris is part of the TARDIS sign, the port open sign. Oh, that is good. And by the way, has anyone done an edit where they've played the Master's Laugh from the End of Time over that bit? Because I've got that in my head. I've got an alternative version of that scene in my head. The scene at the end of the episode with the Masters laughing from the End of Time Part 1 playing over it. Has anyone actually done an edit of that? Because I really want to watch one of those edits, or I must have seen an edit like that, and it's gotten stuck into my mind. But I really want to see an edit of that scene where someone plays the Masters Laugh from the start of the End of Time Part 1 over that bit. I don't know, it just fits into my head for some reason. It just works. I don't know why, it just does. Perhaps if David Tennant was in this series as the alternative Series 5 had Tennant decided to stay on for one more series, perhaps that could have actually been the ending of the episode, the Master's Laugh over the end. Nah, the End of Time would either have already happened, or the Master would get reused later on, and they wouldn't want to spoil it just this early. But I don't know, it just feels... I don't know, I want to see an edit of someone having the Master's Laugh from the End of Time Part 1. Specifically the opening. Over this bit. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that. It's just something is in my head. Anyway, so The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, fantastic setup first episode. Mixed opinion second episode with some really stupid and idiotic characters doing some really stupid and idiotic things. However, a really great peace negotiation treaty bit and some really lovable characters there. Eldane and Malachi, they're great characters. I love them. But Reztek and Alea, and it's not due to the genders, by the way. It's due to how they go about their things. Maybe that was the intention. Maybe Chris Chibnall wanted me to hate those characters, but love the other ones. And you know what? If that's the case, then he more than succeeded. Because my God, do I hate Alea and Reztek, but I love Eldane and Malachi. See, Chris Chibnall can do things right, people. He got me to feel them. Well, if this was his intention, then he got me to feel the way I do about these characters. If that was his intention. But yeah, it's a bit of an all over the place second episode. I like most of the second half. I should say maybe the middle onwards to the second half. But the first bit is a bit... Also, the Doctor, when he mentions the first time he met the Silurians, he doesn't specifically says when or where, but he says long time ago he met another lot of Silurians, similar but different. But then he mentions that the humans attacked them. But he forgot to mention that they attacked the humans first with the virus. I'm sure Chris Chibnall has seen Doctor and the Silurians, or Stephen Moffat has seen Doctor and the Silurians, or someone on the script editing team has seen Doctor and the Silurians, so that we can make the connection. But they forgot get to mention about the Silurians attacking the humans first. The humans accidentally in Doctor Who and the Silurians. I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't, I recommend it. But they go down, they start digging, doing their scientific things. So the Silurians get awakened and they get scared, so they get their dinosaur pet on out there whilst they suck power from the humans. And then later, when the Doctor tries to negotiate a peace, a young rebellious Silurian, a bit like the Zygons in the Zygon invasion and the Zygon inversion in Series 9, attempt to try and wipe out the humans whilst the Elder tries to negotiate a peace, a bit like the Elder in this Silurian story. And then the Silurian, well, after killing the Elder, they spread the virus across parts of the country. So the Doctor has to make a cure for them. And then the humans just gets, because they were so scared about what's going on, they don't let him try to make peace with them afterwards, but instead destroy them because they couldn't take the risk. The Doctor forgets to mention everything about this apart from the fact that the humans attacked them at the very end. He doesn't mention because they were scared, he doesn't mention because it was in response to an attack by the Silurians. He doesn't even mention that he wanted to try and make peace with anyone. He tries to make peace throughout the episode, but he forgets to mention most of the events of the previous encounter, just that he'd met them and the humans attacked them at the end, but he forgets to mention everything else. And yet you can't tell Nursery, Reztek, Malekith and the surrounding Silurians a near 3-hour story in 30 seconds. You can't do that. You have to do it really quickly, but you can at least mention that the Silurians attacked the humans first, so the humans then got scared and attacked them afterwards. The response from Reztek and Malekith and everyone else could still have been the same, but at least he would have told them that the Silurians had started it, just like here. Maybe he would have actually made them think about what was going on a bit more. Maybe Malekith had felt more guilt about what was going on, and maybe for Reztek, if she doesn't change her mind or doesn't think about it, could prove how hell-bent she is on wiping out the humans, that even though the Silurians may have started the previous attack and this attack, she's still hell-bent on destroying the apes. Doesn't matter who started it. Well, as far as I'm aware, the apes started it, but unknowingly, but these guys started it knowingly. And she doesn't care about that, she just wants to get rid of them. But at least it could have shown a bit more, perhaps the fact that the previous attack could have shown her character not listening. Perhaps that could have worked. Maybe that could have helped the character out a little bit. Or maybe it would have made it worse, I'm not quite sure. So overall, I'm making it sound like I don't like Cold Blood, but actually I like most of it. It's just that you have to get through a lot of not so good stuff. For me, I mean, maybe other people get something out of it. I have to sit through the teeth-gritting stuff. This is probably the most teeth-gritting episode of the new series so far. Not the worst, not the baddest, not the weakest, just the one that kind of gets me the most annoyed. So far, and not because it's bad, because there's just stuff that makes me a bit annoyed, a bit like stuff in some of the classic series stories. So yeah, but after that we get some pretty great stuff. If this was a classic series story for 25-minute episodes, part 3 would be my least favourite episode. Yeah, I think, part 3 would definitely be my least favourite episode, whilst my favourite would probably be either part 1 or part 2. I think the cliffhanger for part 1 could have been that bit where the clock strikes 0. Possibly, although that is around the 25 minutes section, it's around the 22 or 23 minutes, but oh well. But yeah, I think part 1 or part 2 would have been my favourite, and then part 3 would have been my least favourite if this was a 4-part story. 4-part 25-minute episodes like the classic series. As it's 2 45-minute episodes, then part 1 is my favourite of the two. But like I said, I don't hate Cold Blood, I just grit my teeth, metaphorically and physically sometimes. Well, I didn't do it so much this time round, but I felt like it. But not for long. It doesn't, well, not disappears, but it goes away halfway through, and you get to have the great peaceful meeting stuff, and then the action climax. I say action, the exciting climax. Also, the bit where the Doctor takes down the barrier thing. That was probably just because Chris Chibnall remembers, oh yeah, I put a barrier up, and now I've got to take it down. Sonic. Oh yeah, and the Doctor uses his Sonic quite a lot. He could when in the TARDIS scene, he could easily have just locked the door like in Utopia. Jeez, Chris Chibnall's already showing how much he loves the Doctor using his Sonic screwdriver. In fact, Stephen Moffat loved having the Doctor use his sonic screwdriver as well, so this is an early sign for the both of them. But anyway, so Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, I think it's a good episode, good story in this series, but I think part one is a near masterpiece, whilst part two is a mixed bag. Mostly good mixed bag, but one that kind of annoys me a bit in other places. So on the whole, I will be giving the Hungry Earth and Cold Blood a 8 out of 10. There's more good than bad. In fact, there's not really that much bad. I just think there's some bits that I'm just not so keen on. I'm just struggling to get into. But it's not awful. It's not bad. It's actually really good. The first episode is great tension building, and the second episode is a great allegory for international relationships by using interspecies relationships with this story. So yeah, let's try that. It's just that part two mainly, not so much part one, but part two has a lot of teeth gritting bit metaphorically and physically for me. But you know, with a bit of an stop and think mode, perhaps maybe it could have been a bit better. It's not the best Silurian story. It might be better. It is better than Warriors of the Deep, but it's not as good as Doctor Who and the Silurians or the Sea Devils. That being said, I do think the Silurians should come back in the Chibnall era. He hasn't brought them back yet. We've had the Silurian gun appear in one episode, but not used by the Silurians. So it'll be interesting to see if they could come back next series, Series 13 perhaps. There hasn't actually been another proper Silurian story after this one. We've had Madame Vastra and a couple of Silurians in the Good Man Goes to War. Madame Vastra has popped up a few more since. And also, I think the Silurians also make an appearance in the Pandora Open. So apart from 2 cameos, and Madame Vastra, and also a cameo in Dinosaurs in a Spaceship. Well, okay, so apart from cameos and Madame Vastra, we haven't had a proper Silurian story since this one. The same could be said for the Sontaran since 2008, apart from the Sarah Jane Adventures ones. But yeah, I'd actually like to see how Chibnall would do the Silurians again in Series 13 or Series 14 whenever he's up for it. Before he leaves, at least. So, yeah, we'll see how they're done. But until then, this is the last proper Silurian story. But it's also the first time we see the redesign of the Silurians that some people weren't so keen on. For me, I think they look better. They look more like lizards. The other ones were reptilian, but not necessarily lizard. These ones definitely look like lizard people. They also, with the makeup and masks they wear, they can show off a bit more expression. They did experiment by using the third eye, but ultimately it seems that just having 2 eyes seemed to work here. And you know what, the script doesn't require the third eye, unlike the first story. I think it works fine just as well without it. You've got the tongue instead, so that, I suppose, that makes up for it. And the heat ray guns make up work for the weapons, so they don't need the third eye. They've got the heat guns for weapons, and they've got the tongue, well, as another weapon, and they don't have to use the eyes for all the device openings and stuff. They've got their own technology for that. So yeah, the third eye wasn't actually that necessary in this story. So like Warrior of the Deep, it would have been there just for appearance's sake. So anyway, so that's it from my review of The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time for one of my favourite episodes of this series, Vincent and the Doctor. I'll see you guys then. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Excuse me. The more out it gets, the less I have to do it. But interesting that we get a dyslexic character into the episodes, and well, bleh, bleh, bleh. It's not entirely made sense, but this is how they're doing it, so may as well. So, well, anyway. Not just one tribe of maybe a dozen. I think you're overdoing it, young woman. And Chris. Let's be honest, Chris Chibnall. Oh my goodness, a Chris Chibnall story that's political. Gee, we don't have any of those these days, do we? Because this episode, those of you who are being honest and telling the truth, by saying it was, perhaps not as much, but it was. Well, anyway, so as I was saying, I could see this being a political international. Anyway, like I said, so and also Tony Haskett is. And this episode was a Tennant story, perhaps that could have been an end scene, or someone on the script editing team has seen Doctor. Maybe Restak would have thought, the situation doesn't change. Maybe Restak I think the cliffhanger would come about the bit where the clock strikes 0, although that's around 25 minutes. They might want to break it slightly earlier, perhaps when yeah. Or edit. Yeah, never mind. Boiling up in me. But this. Jesus, Chris Chibnall's already showing how much he loves the Doctor using the sonic screwdriver in this story. Even years before he writes it happened. Jeez, however, I am look. The older ones could definitely be more reptilian, but not necessarily. So it would have just like